Hey there, Mountaineers. I'm Matterhorn Matt, and welcome to episode 4 of Matterhorn Mondays, the weekly podcast where I have a guest and we talk about all things Disney. This week, my guest is Alex, a historian. Say hi, Alex.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here.
And he has his own YouTube channel, so for those new viewers that don't know who you are, why don't you explain your channel a little bit?
Sure. Well, basically it has two different shows. One of them is a lecture series that kind of goes through each attraction at Disneyland and talks about the history of it, what came before, all the way till what you see now or what could be in the future. And then I have another show which is a vlog series where I go into the park and talk about historical items or places of interest.
Yeah, awesome. He's got a really great channel, and for those of you guys that aren't subscribed to it, I definitely recommend go checking it out. And this week's topics are Maxpass, WestCOT, and Disneyland preservation. So we'll start with the smaller topic, which is Maxpass. And I read online, I think it was this week, of Shanghai getting Maxpass for free compared to what we have to pay over here, $10. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, that makes me insanely jealous, first of all. Because the fact that you have to pay for Maxpass here just seems like such a money grab. But I mean, besides the fact, I myself have always been kind of against fast passes or even Maxpass itself because of the fact that it kind of makes the standby lines extra long. I mean, I suppose if you have Maxpass, you can kind of plan out your whole day ahead of time. But it seems like for anybody else who doesn't want that feature, they have to wait extra long because the lines get even longer. And I suppose with having it free at Shanghai, it's a plus, but at the same time, it could also make things a bit worse for people who just want to wait in the standby lines.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure how regular FastPass works at Shanghai. I'm not entirely sure if they have paper FastPass over there, or if it just opened up without any FastPass, but I guess that's kind of what Disney is moving towards, at least in Anaheim. They're moving towards the whole resort idea where you can plan out your day, plan out your entire week like Walt Disney World, and I feel like they might add what are the wristbands called in Disney World? I can't remember what they're called, but magic bands.
Magic bands?
Yeah. I feel like they're going to be adding that, and I can see magic bands being more convenient than having to pull out your annual pass or your ticket whenever you book a FastPass reservation on your phone and scanning it. But yeah, I'm jealous too about Shanghai getting Maxpass for free. And I think I read in the article that Shanghai isn't necessarily run by the same people that put in Maxpass over here in California. And I guess it's just Disney just being greedy over in Anaheim and not being as greedy in Shanghai, and yeah.
Oh, it's totally true. I'm in Anaheim, and especially the one in Florida, they're really trying to squeeze as much money out of the guest as possible. Everything that you do at Disney, they want to kind of monetize and try to get something out of it. And so having this Maxpass system, or FastPass Plus, or whatever you want to call it, I mean, it's all about getting more money from you because they realize you don't want to wait in line.
Yeah, and I saw this YouTube channel I watch, Fresh Baked. They talked about how Disney could raise the price of Maxpass probably at the start of next year, and just keep on raising the price, and people will still be willing to pay for it, because it'd just be more convenient being on your smartphone. You know how more people have smartphones these days, and not having to walk over to, a specific FastPass line to get a FastPass.
Yeah, I must admit, it is very convenient. It's easy to be able to make the FastPass reservations you want and then to be able to just go up to the attractions. I've seen people use it so far, their new Fast Pass on their phone, and it looks very simple and very easy. So I'll admit there is some validity to wanting to have this thing.
Yeah, but I just don't. I'm just really off-putted about the $10 a day price for it, you know.
Yeah, I know. It just seems like exploiting your, the fact that you don't want to wait in line all day. They're just like, oh, you don't want to wait in line? All right, well, give us some more money and we'll help you out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could totally see Disney just getting rid of the paper Fast Pass down the line and just having Maxpass, paid Fast Pass only.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, you're right. It's just totally crazy to have all that, and then to charge people for it. And like I said, all the while it makes the standby lines even longer. And the more people use this Maxpass, the more they're going to have to wait in line to get on the ride. I mean, I saw when I was there the other day on the 15th when Haunted Mansion Holiday opened, and I was waiting in the standby line, crazy enough as I was to wait in the standby line for over an hour. But I saw the Fast Pass line was really long. It kind of stretched around the side of Haunted Mansion, and then on top of that, once you got in through the gate, you still had to wait a good portion of line, maybe about like 100 feet worth of line to get to the Fast Pass machine that accepted your Fast Pass. So you still had to wait probably like a good 20 minutes at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like one of the, I guess, problems of Fast Pass. Okay, so you want to book a Fast Pass if you know the standby line is going to be crazy. But then again, it could be reversed. The Fast Pass line could be crazy, and it could just be like a 5 or 10 minute walk on, wait for the attraction. And yeah, that's a tough thing, because a lot of like one-time families that go there every once a year, they don't, I guess, know which attractions are going to have short wait times, and the Fast Pass line would be, through the roof. And I guess also it's really unpredictable, so you can just get really unlucky if you get a Fast Pass for, like you said, Haunted Mansion, and the Fast Pass line is longer than the standby line, which you said was already super long.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the other day when I was there, if there hadn't been anybody being accepted onto the ride with Fast Pass, the line probably would have only been half an hour wait for Haunted Mansion instead of 1 hour. But it's twice as long because in between putting normal standby line guests on the ride, they have to stop the standby line and then accept all these people with Fast Pass. So it really took twice as long as it really should have. And honestly, those people with Fast Pass were waiting probably around 20 minutes at least. And that's a long time to wait for something, especially when you're going to have to pay for it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the disadvantages of adding Fast Pass to a lot of the older rides in Disneyland. Like, they recently added a Fast Pass to the Matterhorn. And I've heard that adding that has really, I guess, increased the line a lot. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely increased the line. When I walk by Matterhorn, you can definitely tell that the lines have gotten much longer. And while the guests getting on the ride are, with Fast Pass, I mean, while they're getting on the ride quicker, they're making other guests have to suffer for not paying a premium. You know what I mean? It just, it seems like giving people punishment for not giving Disney extra money. You know what I mean? So it's, in some ways, I guess if you have the money for it, it helps you. But, I mean, it just makes everyone else have to suffer. And I just think that that's just wrong, I guess,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I really hope they don't add Fast Pass to any other rides in Disneyland, because like you said about the Matterhorn, it just makes the lines longer, makes the people in standby suffer. And I mean, if they added a fast pass to the Peter Pan ride, Peter Pan is always at least over 60 minutes almost throughout the day, and adding a fast pass to that ride would probably, I don't know, it might double it, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you walk by the area, you can see that the line is just so long. I mean, now it's getting even longer, and they don't have anywhere to put the people that have extended past the normal standby area. And by adding a fast pass to that, I mean, you're basically asking to double that. I mean, honestly, I think, and this kind of ties into the new Fantasyland idea that they want to do, they would have to increase capacity on rides like that.
Yeah.
You know, make it so Peter Pan's Flight has 2 rows per vehicle instead of just 1, you know, to try to accommodate all those people waiting.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like if you're going to have this premium thing where you get on rides faster by paying $10 per person per day, you know, then Disney has to accommodate in some way to make the lines go faster.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things about Star Wars Land. And I know we bring up Star Wars Land a lot on this show, and we bash Star Wars Land a lot, but basically Star Wars Land is a whole half of it is basically just queue for the 2 rides. And the queue just takes up a lot of space because they know a whole bunch of people are going to be wanting to get on those 2 new rides when it opens. And I don't think Fantasyland has enough room to have a whole huge queue. Well, obviously not as big as the queue for the rides in Star Wars Land, but at least, you know, a bigger queue that can accommodate more guests. I don't think they have a lot of room for that in Fantasyland.
Oh no, yeah, there's no space in Fantasyland. I mean, they'd have to completely redo the whole area in order to make more space. I mean, you're talking about moving the carousel to some other spot and all that, and, you know, removing, you know, places like the heraldry shop, which is now a holiday shop, things like that to make more room for Peter Pan and the queue for Peter Pan. And with Star Wars Land, I mean, it's like you said, you know, most of it is all queue space for waiting in line. And the thing that angers me, too, is that the ride attractions are not built to be high capacity. I mean, you'd think that Disney would want to build them to be high capacity. But, you see, here's the thing. Disney benefits by having long lines, because it'll push people to want to use the new Maxpass.
Yeah, that's totally true. I didn't think of the rides not being high-capacity rides. I mean, I guess later down the road, eventually the lines will, you know, die down a little bit. But, yeah, I really can't imagine what it's going to be like opening week or even opening month for Star Wars Land.
Well, you know, it was like when I was a guest relations cast member at the time in 2012, right before Cars Land was opening, I was showing guests at the Blue Sky Cellar how Cars Land is going to work. And a lot of guests who knew the difference between low capacity and high capacity rides asked me, will Radiator Springs Racers be a high capacity ride? And unfortunately, I already knew the answer. I said, no, it's not. I mean, it's considered, you know, like moderate capacity, you know, at about like, you know, 1,200 riders per hour, around that range. But that's not even close to what Haunted Mansion can do at 2,000 people per hour. That's a high capacity attraction. And, you know, you think about it, I waited in line for 1 hour the other day. That means that 2,000 people went through the attraction before I got on the attraction. And when you have something like Star Wars Land attractions, which will not have 2,000 rider per hour capacity, the lines will be even longer. and you're talking about waiting around 2 hours on a day, like, let's say, when the crowds have died down. It's still going to be a 2-hour wait because of how popular it is. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
It's kind of like how Cars Land, Radiator Springs Racers still has a long wait time, even though it's not anywhere near the grand opening anymore. It's several years later.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, how Radiator Springs Racers still has sometimes over 120-minute wait, and it just baffles me. Yeah, and that's just where Disney can benefit from low capacity, not low capacity, higher capacity rides like the People Mover, The People Mover in Disney World, I don't know, it just eats up people, and having a slow-moving ride like that, I think it would just be beneficial for everybody, Guests could just get on and sit and relax, rest their feet, And we bring up the People Mover a lot on this series too, but we bring it up for a good reason.
Yeah, Disneyland will benefit from... You see, it'd be nice to have Disneyland have a whole bunch of high-capacity rides. That way, as the years go by and the park becomes more popular and they try to stuff more people into the park, it'd be nice to be able to go on rides faster than in the past. When you have a ride that has such a low capacity, and then you allow it to age into the future, just the way Peter Pan's Flight has. Now the lines are still continuing to get long, and the attraction hasn't increased its capacity in any way. Well, I think this will tie into a conversation later on in the episode, so I'll hold off on that. But so that's my thoughts on Maxpass. Is that it's designed to make lines longer in order to make people want to buy more Maxpass.
Definitely, and I'm just gonna bring up one more little tidbit point, but this is where Disneyland really varies from the Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom has so many little areas to put different attractions, and I guess this ties into the conversation later too, so I'll wait to bring that up. But our second topic of the day is WestCOT. Now, for those of you that don't know, WestCOT was the original second gate planned for Disneyland and for the Disneyland Resort as a whole. And I released a video, let's see, how many days ago? 3 days ago, I think, about WestCOT, and a lot of other YouTubers have made videos on it. And I want to know what your thoughts on having a WestCOT park or a whole Disneyland Resort, the way they planned it out back in the 90s.
When I first ever heard of WestCOT, I thought it was such a great idea. And of course, this was long after it never panned out, but it was such a great idea because it was a expansion of the resort in such a way to handle future capacity.
Yeah.
And so the idea was to have extra hotels that could accommodate all the people that want to stay at the Disneyland Resort, as well as having this extra park which would draw even more people in and provide more entertainment for people who are there to see Disneyland but also want to see a bit more. And so it would have been such a great idea to have this, resort expansion, and quite frankly, all the different things that they had planned for it, I would have loved to see myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way the, quote, Disneyland Resort is today, it's just, I don't really consider it a resort, because it only has 3 hotels, and the parking is a mess. And with WestCOT, they would have added, I believe it was 2 or 3 more parking structures. And they would have had monorails and people movers, to help ease the guests from getting back and forth between the parks and between the resort areas and the parking garages. And I feel like there is just so much potential But then again, the budget, $3 billion is a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. Even in the 1990s, that was a lot of money. But the thing is, I really think it would have been well spent, because having monorails people movers that took you from the different parking structures to the center of the resort would have been really fantastic. Imagine resort before, and then you arrive at a parking structure, three of the largest parking structures you've ever seen in your life, and then having ease of parking, and then getting onto a people mover which took you to the center of the resort, and then around you would have seen a shopping center, several resort hotels, each of a different theme, even what do you call it, amphitheater type area. Yeah. All the stuff they planned for it was literally like creating its own little world. And I often think of it as kind of creating a little mini Disney world here in Anaheim. For what people see today at Disneyland Resort, it's nothing compared to the ideas that they had planned for WestCOT.
Yeah, and I feel like what Disneyland needs is to be its own little Disney World, because it's just so blocked up with all the traffic around, and the buildings, the businesses kind of just ruin the magic, at least for me, a little, to an extent. But yeah, having all of that stuff would have increased capacity, definitely, and I really think WestCOT would have been miles ahead of of California Adventure.
Oh, yeah. I remember when Disney California Adventure opened, and even as a little kid, I thought, this place looks tacky and cheap, And, but, I think WestCOT would have been so much better, because everything there, they would have spent good money on it. They would have had attractions that were popular at Epcot at the time, like World of Motion and Horizons and things like that. And they would have had this great little international area where you could visit examples of the different countries around the world and things like that. And it literally would have been like Epcot, but in the West, and that's why they call it WestCOT. But it was such an exciting idea. Whenever I look at the pictures of it and read through the different ideas that they had planned for it, I go, wow, this is something that people really deserve. This is something that's really great. But then what happened was, as you know, the city and the citizens of the city were completely against it, because of they believed it would create more traffic, which I don't think it would have. I think it would have, if anything, relieved traffic. And they thought at the time that expanding Disneyland Resort would have been bad for the city. But anybody who knows anything knows that when you expand Disneyland Resort, more money for the city. You provide more money for its utilities and for its and for the city's maintaining, such as fixing roads and adding street lights, cleaning up the city, that kind of thing. And that's what Disneyland Resort provides to the city. And expanding it and creating all these different ideas they had for WestCOT and all the different hotels that they had planned, it would have really helped the city out a lot more than it would have hurt.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't remember the exact number, but I do remember reading that it would have added a lot of jobs to the whole Anaheim little area. And,
26,000, which is ironically the amount that's ironically the amount that of cast members there are currently at Disneyland Resort.
Oh my, that's crazy to think. That's just insane.
Yeah. So eventually we got to that number, but it took several more years.
Yeah, and I don't know. As much as I like the idea of WestCOT as a whole, I can kind of see the second park going down the same road that Epcot is going now, with how they perceived the future back in the late 90s. Um, and attractions like Body Wars and Horizons being replaced in Epcot.
Hmm.
I feel like they would be in like the same pickle they'd be in today with Epcot, with having to redo the whole Future World area to be more, well, I guess not more futuristic, but more IP based and all that stuff.
Yeah, to be honest, you're right. Even though I thought that the WestCOT idea would be really great for the park, when you think about all the different attractions they have planned for it, they would eventually had to replace them all.
Mm.
But if you think about it, we would have had great new replacements. Test Track, Mission Space, and then, of course, they probably would have put a Finding Nemo Omnimover type ride system there, probably emanating the same thing that Epcot does today. But I think that the World Showcase section of WestCOT would have actually been able to survive this. And if they had a Paris section, they could add a Ratatouille ride and things like that nowadays. So there would have been some potential for the World Showcase area, but there definitely would have had to be some major redos on the Future World section of WestCOT.
Mm-hmm. And the World Showcase for me is easily one of the best parts of of Epcot. Walking around all the different countries and seeing how, the people that live over there, how they, and getting to try all the different foods and all that stuff. It's just amazing. It's like,
and to see the architecture.
Yeah, the architecture is really like the standout part of the World Showcase. And I agree with you about how you said that the World Showcase part of WestCOT would have mostly survived. But yeah, when it comes to Future World, there's a lot of trouble. I don't want to say trouble, but a lot of trouble they can get themselves into with putting in futuristic rides that resemble how they perceive the future to be back in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess not 1998, but whenever. And they would have had to spend a lot of money to replace them, and but I feel like they would have been well done if Euro Disneyland hadn't done as bad as it did. I feel like WestCOT, at least if it existed today, I feel like it would still be, amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, WestCOT would be perfect for adding a Star Wars land. Mm-hmm, because they could have done something like Coruscant instead of creating a whole new world or something. Mm-hmm. They could have made it look like, Coruscant in the Star Wars trilogy, where it's all city looking instead of being out in like a forest like currently our Star Wars land would be. And then on top of that, who knows? I mean, maybe instead of adding Star Wars Land to Disneyland, we would have had Cars Land at Disneyland. Can you imagine?
That would be crazy.
I think I would prefer that more, to have Cars Land at Disneyland.
Yeah. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think I would too. Actually, I read in the comments of one of my videos a while back, and someone proposed replacing Autopia and like retheming it to like a little Cars ride.
Yeah, I heard a long time ago that when they decided to remove Luigi's Flying Tires, that it was possible that they would bring Autopia to Cars Land and fill in that area and create a large Cars themed Autopia. It would have been really great. But then they didn't do it, and they decided to go along with this little dancing ride, which is cute, but I think lacking.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't think I went on it last time we visited, but we didn't spend a lot of time in DCA. But as a whole, how the Disneyland Resort would have been if they would have gone through with this project, I feel like it would have, I don't know, I just can't explain it. I feel like it would have been miles ahead of what we have today. I mean, I'm not going to bash on the Grand Californian Hotel because I love the architecture and the whole feel that they have going on there. And I mean, I do enjoy, little parts of California Adventure. Like, I enjoy the little area they have around the Grizzly River Run and, Cars Land, of course. But, I don't know, I feel like I'd be willing to lose those things in favor of WestCOT.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you think about it, right where the Grand Californian is today would have actually been a resort hotel that resembled a lot of the Grand Floridian at Walt Disney World. And I think the Grand Floridian looks really beautiful. I mean, it's all white, but I mean, its architecture is really pretty, and it would have been really great to have that right next to WestCOT. And like you said, I too really like the Grand Californian Hotel. And who knows, maybe they would have had room to place that in the future. But the other hotels that they had planned too were really beautiful and well themed. I mean, if you think about it, what do we have today besides the Grand Californian? We have the Disneyland Hotel, which, as beautiful as it is, doesn't have one of those really immersive Disney hotel feels, like when walking into the Polynesian or when walking into the Grand Floridian. And so, I mean, it's beautiful, but it resembles more to me like a run-of-the-mill, 4-star hotel. So as great as it is, it doesn't really feel like a Disney hotel to me. And then you have the Paradise Pier Hotel, which
my gosh, I didn't like to bring up that hotel.
The Paradise Pier Hotel would have remained. So while Disneyland Hotel would have been destroyed and rebuilt to look a lot like the Grand Floridian, or if you think about it, it would have looked like the Disneyland Hotel in Paris. That's what it would have looked like.
Yeah.
And Paradise Pier Hotel would have stayed. I mean, back then it was known as the Pan Pacific Hotel, I think. But it would have stayed, and it would have been rethemed to a nicer kind of tower-style hotel. But I think that even still, that theme would have been a lot better than what it currently is today as Paradise Pier Hotel. I mean, it just seems so tacky to me. Goofy's Kitchen, I don't like. I mean, yes, it's cute to a certain degree, but it also borders to me on tacky. So I don't really like Goofy's Kitchen. I probably would never eat there. I've sat in the dining area before, but I never actually ate there. And just feeling the ambiance of it felt a little bit on the tacky side to me. So I don't really like Paradise Pier Hotel, but that would have been well themed, and then there would have been a hotel to the south of it where Simbalot is currently, and that would have been a really nice big hotel as well. So there were lots of things that they had planned, and if you think about it, right where Disneyland Drive passes underneath downtown Disney, that would have been actually an overpass instead, and that overpass would have gone over a lake.
Whoa,
and
okay.
The lake, you would have been able to take a boat from Disneyland Hotel, and once again, Disneyland Hotel looking a lot like Grand Floridian, and you would have been able to take a boat from that hotel and cross underneath Disneyland Drive and cross over to the hotel next to WestCOT, and you could get off there, just like at Walt Disney World, and you could, go to the main entrance of WestCOT. And some other really cool things for people who don't know is that the monorail, it would not have stopped at WestCOT, and that's a whole different story. It has to do with, maintaining who paid for which park to get into. So they wouldn't have been able to do an in-park stop at WestCOT. Put a station outside of WestCOT for you to stop at, and then they would have put a station over by Simba parking lot where there would have been a hotel there as well. So it would have been an expanded monorail system, and that would have been really cool too.
Yeah. I didn't I don't think I read about being able to take a boat to the, like you said, over the, or I guess under the street, but that sounds really cool now that I'm thinking about it. And yeah, Paradise Pier Hotel, I stayed there once. I don't really remember a lot, but when looking at it when I'm actually there, it looks, I don't know, I just think it looks gross from the outside, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
And like you said, the redesign of the Disneyland Hotel, I've been to the hotel the Grand Californian's based off of in San Diego, the Hotel del Coronado. And that hotel is just really beautiful to look at, how it's sitting on the beach, and how the Grand Californian is beautiful as well. It's, I believe it's sitting on like a sort of man-made beach area, but yeah, seeing that over in Anaheim would have been...
Oh, you mean the Grand Floridian?
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Did I say Grand California?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I meant a Grand Floridian, yeah. And seeing that in Anaheim would have been really something I would actually pay a lot of money to see and to actually stay in as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even imagine just having dinner at one of the restaurants within Grand Floridian.
Yeah.
I mean, just being able to look out the windows over to the lake, you know, and watch all the little boats on the lake and things like that. I mean, in the middle of Anaheim. Can you imagine that?
That's like, for me, that's one of the best parts of visiting Disneyland, is just sitting down, you know, on Main Street and just watching all the people walk by, and being able to do that in that kind of hotel, you know, eating dinner with my family, looking out one of the windows and seeing people walk by as they, you know, enter the park or whatever. That would just be, I don't know, it would be like a dream come true.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, the ideas that they had were so beautiful. I mean, there would have been 5 hotels total. So there would have been a Disneyland hotel that resembles the one in Paris. Then there would have been a completely redesigned Paradise Pier Hotel, then another hotel next to Epcot, which you could access WestCOT. And that would have been the first Disney hotel that was access into the park. But that became the Grand Californian, which now you have access from the Grand Californian. But they would have had so many great things to see, and they would have completely re-landscaped everything. I mean, even Catella Road, passing along the south end of the resort, they would have created a natural-looking landscape where Catella Avenue passes over the landscape, and the landscape connects to the convention center. So there would have been a lake and everything right there on Catella Avenue, and all that would have been part of the money that Disney would have spent on this $3 billion project. But it would have been so beautiful. But as you know, one of the main reasons why this whole project never took place was because of the failure that was Disneyland Paris.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of stuff.
So it's, you know... Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. A lot of stuff can really be blamed on the, you know, downfall that was Disneyland Paris. You know, WestCOT, the other little theme park they had planned over on Long Beach, a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know. Yeah. It's all Michael Eisner's fault.
Yeah, everyone go ahead and blame it on him. But, you know, though, what's really sad, too, is I think that Disneyland Paris looks nice.
Yeah.
I would want to visit it, you know, like, if I had the money, I'd go and visit it. Yeah. So I'm surprised that it didn't do very well.
Mm-hmm. And,
I mean, it's like... now it's okay, but...
Well, I mean, they're adding a lot of stuff to Discoveryland that's kind of destroying the theming, but that's Paris's problem, not ours.
Yeah.
And that moves us to the third topic, which is Disneyland preservation. And Alex, I know you're super passionate about this idea, so why don't you go ahead and start off the conversation?
Sure. Well, there's a great argument amongst Disneyland fans as to how much change is good versus bad. And, and so how much should we preserve Disneyland? And honestly, there is no right or wrong answer necessarily. It depends on how much each person thinks. And quite frankly, I get a lot of people on my channel who comment and they, the way that it sounds, they would have really preserved Disneyland a lot more than it is preserved today. And unfortunately, people don't realize that things that worked in the past would not necessarily work today in the present. And Disneyland, as you know, everybody knows, is something that's supposed to be evolving and changing and being plus. And there's the overused quote that Walt said that, Disneyland is never completed. So everybody knows all that. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up in this conversation is less about adding new stuff versus actually improving older things. So one of the things I was going to talk about a few minutes ago was Peter Pan's Flight. Now, Peter Pan's Flight is a problematic ride attraction because you have to wait forever in a line. Disney's normal thing that they would do is they would extend the queue and whatever. But then you would, by adding on more buildings and stuff to house the queue, you're destroying Fantasyland. So what about something else? What if we went and increased the ride's capacity by making larger pirate ships that you board with 2 or 3 rows, in fact, that could hold more people and then go through the ride attraction? I mean, you could technically increase the ride's capacity by 3 times just by adding 2 more rows to each pirate ship. So that's the kind of question I wanted to bring to people who are listening to this podcast, which is, instead of, the normal ideas of what we preserve and what we destroy, what if we improved upon the rides that we have? So is there any ride that you can think of, Matt, that, could definitely use some kind of improving, that it shouldn't be destroyed but maybe kept and improved?
I brought this up very briefly in my conversation a couple weeks ago with Rob Plays. I talked about if people would get angry over updating the animatronics in Pirates of the Caribbean to, the newer age animatronics. And I think this kind of goes along with what you're saying. Improving the animatronics in Pirates would... I mean, I'm not complaining, I guess, because Pirates is okay the way it is, but I feel like improving the animatronics would really, I guess, immerse you better into the whole ride,
Mm-hmm.
And
no, I agree. I mean, oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, you you go.
Oh, okay. So, you have a really good point there. That's something that I would agree upon as well. I mean, a lot of people go, oh no, a lot of those animatronics are the originals and you can't replace them. But the thing is a lot of those animatronics have been replaced. And what they've been replaced with is brand new parts. There's a philosophical question that goes, how much new parts can you add to an old car before it becomes a new car? And that's the type of philosophical question that people should really be asking about Disneyland. I mean, if you keep replacing the parts on these animatronics, which they have, they replace the skeletal structure that holds up the animatronic, they replace the cylinders that hold the hydraulic pressure, they replace the computers that run the animatronic. I mean, for goodness sakes, all of those animatronics used to run off of tape, but nowadays they are computer controlled. So how much of an original animatronic are they really? Their skins have been replaced, their hair's been replaced. So I think that if we let go of that and we just go, okay, how can we plus this attraction? I would agree that it would be great to have animatronics that are more up to today's modern appearance, where they have fluid motion and have a lot more animation to them. I mean, applied to the right sections of the attraction, of course, but you could have animatronics that do some really amazing acting. And, I mean, look at Disneyland Paris. They have two pirates that are fighting each other with swords.
Yeah,
I mean, that is really cool. Oh, I'm already bringing up all the stuff. You're like, oh, great. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, that's a great way to improve an old attraction. But a lot of people are very reserved, and they say, no, it should look the way it did in the 1960s. And to be honest, Pirates of the Caribbean has changed so much from the 1960s version already. It doesn't look much at all like it used to. So that's getting an aged point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And,
and my rant is over.
And about the animatronics in the Pirates in Paris, I was watching a ride-through a couple weeks ago of the new scenes that they added, how they got rid of the redhead and all that stuff, and I was looking at the animatronics and thinking, these look way better than the ones we have in Anaheim, and I would, I'd pay, well, I guess I'd still pay, money to go, but I don't want to say I'd kill for those animatronics because, yeah, but I'd really like to have, those updated animatronics over in Disneyland because it just makes it seem, old, I guess. And the same thing can be said for each other attraction that uses all those old age animatronics, like, what's it called? Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. They could totally, I guess, like, revamp that ride with a whole new Lincoln animatronic. And I was actually reading a Mice Chat article before we started this about how a lot of people don't like that ride. And I mean, this goes along with with the topic we brought up. I feel like if they updated it a lot, to add the new animatronic, add the new, show, whatever that they play, I feel like if they did that to be more in touch with, like, modern times, I feel like that would get more people to like it and actually have a lot of people pack that little theater full.
Yeah, I mean, as you were talking, I was reminded of a show at WestCOT, actually. And if I remember correctly, it's called American Journeys. And it's basically a kind of patriotic themed show where where the stage can be reset with different sets and different animatronics acting out different scenes. Mm-hmm. And, a great idea just to throw out there would be to update, Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln with, instead of him just standing in front of a chair and giving one speech, what if there were great moments in Lincoln's career that are actually acted out by different Lincoln animatronics? So you have the stage reset with, let's say, the moment where he decides to fight back in the Civil War, or maybe he's standing in front of a crowd giving his Gettysburg Address. What if it actually did show great moments with Abraham Lincoln as opposed to one great moment, which is the curmudgeon of different speeches that he's given. So you have the stage resetting, just like the Carousel of Progress, where the scenes can actually move around and it can reset the stage. And then you would have a more engaging show. So, that's a great way to improve an old attraction without technically replacing it. A lot of people, though, they say, like, oh, but the show right now is, it's the way it was in the 1960s. And I go, that's great and all. I have a lot of respect for it. But I went there the other day, and I was one of only 5 people in the theater. And that's not good. So if no one's watching it, then why does it matter? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And what you brought up about the Epcot ride, about redoing Great Moments, that actually just blew my mind of how awesome that would be. Having an actual Lincoln animatronic reading an excerpt from the Gettysburg Address in front of a whole bunch of audio animatronics, watching him and all that other stuff. That would be amazing. And yeah, like you said, if nobody's going to see the show, why does it matter if they change it? And I'm going to be honest, I've only seen the show once, and this last year I went was the first year that I've seen it. And the first, movie that they play before they get to Lincoln is kind of a snooze fest, to be honest. I heard a lot of people behind me snoring, and like you said, my family and I were one of maybe 10 or 15 other people in the theater, and I was really just waiting for them to show Lincoln, and that's like one of the big flaws, I guess, of the attraction.
I agree with you. I mean, as a critic myself, I enjoy that scene, that beginning scene, but I also know that it no longer fits with today's modern society, because I'll admit, today's society of people don't have the patience to wait through that whole beginning section of the show where you're watching a movie. And so attractions like that should reflect today's modern society. So I'm sorry to say that to people who are listening right now and they're going, what? How can you? But Disneyland is meant to change with the times. It's meant to be relevant to the modern people. And what modern people want is they want something that shows more action. And I mean, granted, they don't have to give Lincoln a machine gun and have him jump off a helicopter, but,
that would be awesome to see, though.
I know, him shouting for the unity. Anyway, but it would be great to give the show a bit more movement, a bit more kinetic energy to the show, so that way it, because I too saw people sleeping in the theater in that first section of the show, and I thought, okay, that was great for the 1960s, but it's not great anymore. So that's another attraction I think that could, benefit from that. There's also, I was thinking of Space Mountain. Space Mountain is great. I mean, it's you ride it and you're in the dark and there's stars spinning everywhere. I mean, I love the fact that the stars are spinning everywhere. Yeah. And a cool little fun fact is that's achieved by a bunch of disco balls that are lit up at different angles and spin at different angles. So that way it makes the whole room kind of rotate and the stars kind of collide with each other and things like that. That's great. But I also feel like they could use the new projection technology that they have in there for Ghost Galaxy and Hyperspace Mountain. They could use that projection technology to maybe show different things like supernovas and comets flying through space, things like that. Some really cool stuff that they could really plus up. Yeah. And, in the past, I mean, it's not so different from what originally was in Space Mountain, because there was an asteroid, there was a satellite originally, but it became an asteroid in the 80s, I believe. And so there were asteroids and things, three-dimensional, and so they could do that with projection technology. So I think that would be really great to improve an old attraction,
Yeah, that would be really cool, seeing like supernovas, like you said, and I guess maybe illuminating the stars a little bit more. But then again, I'm not complaining about Space Mountain because it is better, in my opinion, than Walt Disney World's. But
oh, totally. I was riding through Walt Disney World, and I was going, okay, these planets and things are stationary. And I go, what are they illuminated by? And granted, I'll admit this was in 2006, but they used those old overhead projectors that you get at if you remember back in elementary school where they would have to place a thin sheet of plastic that the teacher could ride on, and put that over. They used those, and it was a sheet of plastic with a printout of a planet on it. And that was just sitting on an overhead projector. And I saw that with my own eyes. I'm like, what? So So, I mean, yes, our Space Mountain is definitely still better than that one at Walt Disney World. But, this conversation carries on to Walt Disney World, too. What if they updated their Space Mountain and made it more exciting, and had visual effects that match today's society? I mean, if you think about it, Shanghai Disneyland is the epitome of what we're talking about. It's updating those attractions. Look at their Peter Pan's flight. It has multiple what do you call them, seating rows rather than just one. And then they have their Tomorrowland, which now has a Tron ride, which is really cool. And then they've updated the idea of the Astro Orbiter and gave it more of a kind of like it looks to me like a roller coaster harness. But, they've updated the old ideas and brought it up to something that they thought that society would like to see. Yeah. And that's the kind of changes I think Disneyland could benefit from. I mean, if you think about it right now, Disneyland is super popular. There's technically, besides Tomorrowland and some crowding issues in Fantasyland, there's not much need to change what's already there. New Orleans Square doesn't need to be changed. Adventureland doesn't need to be changed. So, there's no need to demolish very much and change anything. So what we could benefit from is an update to the old rides to bring them up to par. I mean, and so one of the things I'll praise is Haunted Mansion, and they added back the Hatbox Ghosts. And that's a great way to plus up an old attraction. So that's exactly what I'm talking about with this subject.
Yeah, every time I ride the Haunted Mansion, I hope that the ride stops right when I'm in front of the Hatbox Ghost, because watching him is just really fascinating, trying to figure out how it works. But and a lot of what you said could go to apply to Disneyland Paris too, because of what they have with the Haunted Mansion that they have over there and the way they theme Space Mountain around Jules Verne. I feel like there's a lot of potential for what they could do in Anaheim. And I wanted to bring up one little thing. I really wish Disney would make more animatronic stage shows like the Carousel of Progress and the Country Bird Jamboree, because I really love sitting and watching, and I sometimes listening to the songs that they're playing. I feel like that's just really interesting, at least to me.
Well, I was thinking of something back when Innoventions was still around. They still had the rotating theater effect going, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if they replaced Innoventions with something more relevant, like a WALL-E attraction that you could sit in the seating area and go around to different scenes where WALL-E has different adventures, And so I thought that'd be really cool to see, or something, because it'd be kind of great to reuse the Carousel Theater building and, go around once again and see kind of a stage show. I mean, America Sings was awesome. It's too bad that they never updated it, because I think if they updated it to make it more modern, it would have survived. But instead it closed, and thankfully they reused the animatronics and brought them to Splash Mountain. But then again, they could have avoided removing America Sings if they updated the music, or maybe did something new with the show. But they didn't, and that's why they ended up having to close it. So, but then you get into the whole argument of, do you really want to invest in something that's not working for you? So that's a different argument.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to what you said about people these days having short attention spans. They want action. They don't really want to sit around listening to a whole bunch of bears sing country songs. I mean, I know I would, but but yeah, I'd totally love to see the carousel theater being used again for something other than Star Wars. And I'm hoping once Star Wars Land opens, they'll repurpose the carousel theater into something cool again.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about what if they had put something along the lines of Mission Space inside the carousel theater.
Oh, yeah.
And waiting in the queue, you kind of rotate around. Just like funny little ideas to throw out there. But I mean, now you got the attraction in Star Wars Land, which will utilize the same technology. So you don't need Mission Space at Disneyland anymore. But, it's always fun to think, what could they do to plus up the park? Not necessarily destroy something that's there, but to make it even better. And that's why I was thinking of preservation. I mean, how much do you really want to keep the old park versus making it even better,
Yeah, and a lot of people say that Disneyland isn't a museum, and it really shouldn't be. It should be updated with the newest technology there is available. It should be updated with, like you said, like with fresh new ideas to bring life to old attractions that are worn out. And I feel like they could do a lot of good with expanding New Orleans Square. I think we talked about this last week, though, so I don't want to bring it up again.
Yeah. Well, Walt Disney himself was always changing and evolving the park. I mean, he did not like to see the park stagnate. And there's a lot of parts of Disneyland today that have stagnated way past their prime. Toontown. And so, Walt Disney would not have stood for that. He would have constantly been changing it. Any place that he could see an improvement, he would have done it. Because he himself would have been irked by it. So that's the kind of thing that people should be feeling themselves. They should feel that the park should be changing even more and doing more things. I mean, Pixie Hollow is great, but that's a big piece of property that they could do something with.
And it's outdated. So, it's really outdated too.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a good thing to think about ways of changing Disneyland, because that's what we should be asking for. We should always be asking for something new,
Yeah, and I really hope they bring Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway somehow to Disneyland. Maybe in Toontown, but as long as they don't replace Roger Rabbit, that'd be cool.
What's Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway?
Oh, it's the new ride that's replacing the Great Movie Ride in Hollywood Studios. So it's not going to be like 3D. I think Disney is calling it 2.5D, and they haven't really released a lot of details onto how it works. But I remember at D23 they showed like a 5-second clip on how one of, I guess, a test scene. And it looks interesting, but it uses the designs from the new Mickey cartoons. I don't know how you feel about that, but...
Oh. Well, I've seen some of the new Mickey cartoons. I'm glad that they're making new Mickey cartoons, but I don't really like the animation.
Yeah, I mean, if it's called Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, I think it should be based on how Mickey normally looks, not like how he... I mean, I'm not bashing the cartoon or anything. I haven't seen any episodes of it. I think the art style is, I guess, interesting, but I mean, yeah, it's like a fresh take, but yeah, I just hope they bring it over here.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be good.
But yeah, anyways, I think that's gonna do it for this topic. Do you have any other things you'd like to say, Alex, about the subject?
I don't think so. I think I've pretty much ranted all my ravings to people, so I think I've given it my all.
Yeah, both of us. One thing I did want to bring up was the possibility of replacing the animatronics in the Jungle Cruise, because those are super old and outdated for sure. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, that'd be a great thing to do, update the animatronics. You know, so, like the hippopotamuses, they could do some different things with them.
Oh yeah, for sure the hippos. Those are super old.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was passing on the Jungle Cruise one time, and the hippo opened its mouth, and you could hear it squeaking. And
Oh my gosh.
I
That's so
was
good.
like, oh no, this is not. No, they need to do something about that.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be really great if they replaced the animatronics in the Jungle Cruise. But anyways, that's gonna do it for this week's episode of Matterhorn Mondays. Thanks for being on, Alex. It was fun as always talking to you. And check out our Patreons. They'll both be linked in the description. And I want to hear what you guys think about all these topics, about Maxpass, about WestCOT, and about Disneyland preservation. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and comment down below your ideas. And if you're listening on SoundCloud or iTunes, I'll link the video in the description so you can go ahead and head to that. Make a little comment down below on your opinions of all the things we talked about. And yeah, follow me on Twitter. Check out our Patreons. Help fund Alex's vlogging adventures in Disneyland. And that's about it. I'll see you next time, Mountaineers. Have a great big beautiful tomorrow.